across the sprawling landscapes of West Africa, where the sun sets in a riot of amber and gold, and the air thrums with the pulse of ancient traditions. The power of song and chant has always been central to communal life. For centuries, the peoples of this region, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Iwe, Ashanti, and countless others, have gathered beneath the broad canopies of trees, around flickering fires, and within the sacred confines of temples and shrines to lift their voices in unison. These are not merely songs, they are invocations, affirmations of identity, rhythmic declarations of hope, sorrow, triumph, and resilience. But what if we journey deeper beneath the surface of these African rhythms? What if we listen more closely to the cadence of the drums, the rise and fall of the voices, the subtle interplay between call and response? We might recognize a familiar structure, one that echoes across continents and millennia, linking the tribal chants of West Africa to the sacred poetry of ancient Israel. The Psalms. The Book of Psalms, a collection of 150 sacred hymns and prayers, stands at the heart of the Hebrew Bible. Traditionally ascribed to King David and other ancient poets, the Psalms express an extraordinary range of human emotion: joy, anguish, gratitude, despair, hope, and devotion. They are sung, chanted, whispered in solitude, and proclaimed in the assembly, their words forming the backbone of Jewish and Christian worship. At first glance, the Psalms and West African tribal chants might seem worlds apart. One arises from the arid hills and valleys of the ancient Near East, the other from the lush forests and savannas of Africa. Yet when we listen with attuned ears, we find astonishing similarities, not only in the content of the prayers, but in the very rhythms, structures, and communal spirit that animate them. To understand this connection, we must first appreciate the centrality of rhythm in West African music and spirituality. Among the Yoruba people of Nigeria, for example, the bata drum is not merely an instrument. It is a voice, capable of mimicking the tones and inflections of spoken language. Skilled drummers use these instruments to communicate proverbs, prayers, and even entire stories, their rhythms weaving together the sacred and the secular. Similarly, the Yu of Ghana and Togo employ the Atsiagbekor, a war dance and song tradition, to recount the deeds of ancestors, celebrate victories, and invoke the blessings of the spirits. The chants that accompany these dances are marked by repetitive refrains, intricate polyrhythms, and a call and response structure that invites participation from the entire community. In these traditions, music is not a performance for passive listeners. It is a communal act, a shared spiritual experience in which every voice matters. The leader intones a line and the community responds, their voices rising and falling in a seamless exchange. The rhythm is the heartbeat of the gathering, binding individuals together into a single, pulsing organism. Now consider the structure of the Hebrew Psalms. While the original melodies have long been lost to history, the poetic structure of the Psalms suggests a similar pattern of communal recitation. Many psalms are composed in parallelism, a literary device in which one line echoes or responds to another. This lends itself naturally to a call and response format, with a leader reciting a line and the congregation replying. Take, for example, Psalm 136, known as the Great Hallel. Each verse begins with a statement of God's deeds, followed by the refrain, "For his steadfast love endures forever." In ancient times, this psalm would have been chanted responsively, with the leader recounting the wonders of creation and deliverance, and the people affirming the enduring love of God. The repetitive refrain acts as a rhythmic anchor, much like the chorus in an African chant. The Psalms also incorporate elements of lament, praise, thanksgiving, and supplication, emotions that find expression in the songs and chants of West Africa. When a Yoruba priest calls upon the erasure, invoking both sorrow and hope, or when an Ashanti griot recounts the trials and triumphs of the people, the emotional intensity mirrors the cries of the psalmist. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Beyond structure and emotion, there is a deeper resonance in the way both traditions use song and chant to bridge the human and the divine. In West African cosmology, music is a conduit between worlds. It summons the spirits, honors the ancestors, and draws down blessings from above. The act of singing or chanting is itself a prayer, a way of aligning the self with the rhythms of creation. In the Psalms too, song is a means of entering the presence of the divine. Sing to the Lord a new song, exhorts the psalmist, for he has done marvelous things. The act of singing is not merely an expression of joy. It is a transformative act, a way of participating in the ongoing work of creation and redemption. How did these parallels arise? Some scholars point to the ancient migrations and cultural exchanges that crisscross the African and Near Eastern worlds. Trade routes linked the Nile Valley to the kingdoms of West Africa, carrying not only goods but ideas, stories, and songs. Jewish communities have existed in Africa for centuries, from the ancient Beta Israel of Ethiopia to the Igbo Jews of Nigeria. In these encounters, sacred traditions merged and evolved, creating new forms of worship that blended the Hebrew Psalms with African rhythms and sensibilities. But even beyond direct contact, there is something universal in the impulse to set prayer to rhythm, to gather as a community and lift one's voice in song. The human heart beats in time. Our bodies move to music almost instinctively. The call and response pattern, so central to both the Psalms and African chants, reflects the fundamental human need for connection, for a dialogue with the divine, with one another, and with ourselves. In Nigeria, the influence of the Psalms can be seen in the rise of syncretic religious movements. In the 19th and 20th centuries, as Christianity and Islam spread across West Africa, local communities adapted these faiths to their own cultural contexts. Churches and mosques became sites of vibrant musical experimentation, where traditional drums and chants mingled with imported hymns and prayers. In many Nigerian churches today, the Psalms are not simply read, they are sung, chanted, and danced. The congregation sways in time with the beat, voices overlapping in a joyous cacophony. The words of the ancient Hebrew poets take on new life, infused with the rhythms of Africa. In the hands of a skilled cantor or choir, a psalm becomes a living thing, a tapestry of sound and spirit. The same is true in the African diaspora. In the spirituals of the American South, the ring shouts of the Gullah people, and the gospel choirs of Harlem, we hear echoes of both the Psalms and the tribal chants of West Africa. The refrain, the call and response, the insistent rhythm that refuses to be silenced, all these are threads that bind together a global tapestry of sacred music. Consider the journey of a single psalm, let us say Psalm 23, perhaps the most beloved of all. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. In the hands of a Hebrew psalmist, these words evoke the pastoral landscapes of ancient Israel, the deep trust of a people in their God. But imagine these same words chanted in a Yoruba church, accompanied by the steady beat of a talking drum. The imagery of shepherd and flock resonates with the pastoral traditions of West Africa, the relationship between leader and community, ancestor and descendant. Now imagine the congregation joining in, their voices rising in response. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The rhythm carries them forward, weaving together past and present, Africa and Israel, earth and heaven. The psalm becomes not just a text, but an experience, a living bridge between worlds. In this way, the Psalms and West African chants do more than share a rhythm. They share a vision of what it means to be human. They affirm the power of song to heal, to bind communities together, to express the inexpressible. They remind us that, across time and space, people have always turned to rhythm and verse to make sense of their lives, to seek comfort in sorrow and give thanks in joy. But the story does not end here. In contemporary West Africa, the legacy of this musical and spiritual synthesis continues to evolve. Young musicians draw on both ancient chants and biblical psalms to create new forms of praise and protest. Gospel choirs incorporate traditional rhythms. Poets set modern struggles to the cadences of sacred verse. The fusion of Hebrew prayer and tribal chant becomes a wellspring of creativity, a force for resilience and renewal. One striking example can be found in the Aladura churches of Nigeria, a movement that arose in the early 20th century in response to both colonial oppression and the desire for spiritual autonomy. The Aladura, meaning praying people, blend Christian doctrine with indigenous practices, placing a strong emphasis on prayer, healing, and prophecy. In their worship, the psalms are chanted in Yoruba or Igbo, accompanied by drums, clapping, and ecstatic dancing. The boundaries between Hebrew and African, ancient and modern, sacred and secular, dissolve in the shared rhythm of prayer. Similarly, among the Igbo Jews of southeastern Nigeria, the Psalms occupy a central place in religious life. Chanted in Hebrew, English, or Igbo, the Psalms are woven into daily prayers, festivals, and rites of passage. The melodies may differ from those of ancient Israel, but the spirit of the Psalms, the yearning for justice, the cry for mercy, the exaltation of praise, remains unchanged. This resilience is mirrored in the broader African diaspora. In the spirituals sung by enslaved Africans in the Americas, we find the same interplay of lament and hope, the same reliance on rhythm and repetition to sustain the spirit. "Swing low, sweet chariot," echoes the longing of the exiled Israelites. "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept when we remembered Zion." The psalms and the chants become songs of survival, vehicles for memory and resistance. Why do these forms endure? Perhaps it is because they speak to something fundamental in the human soul. The rhythm of a chant, the cadence of a psalm, the interplay of leader and chorus. These are not merely aesthetic choices, but expressions of a worldview. They affirm that life is not a solitary journey, but a communal quest. They remind us that our joys and sorrows are shared, that our prayers are stronger when lifted together. In both the Psalms and West African chants, there is also a deep sense of history, a recognition that we are part of a chain of memory stretching back through the generations. When a Nigerian elder leads a chant, or when a cantor intones a psalm, they are not merely performing, they are invoking the presence of those who came before, drawing on the wisdom and strength of the ancestors. The rhythm becomes a thread that binds past, present, and future. This sense of continuity is especially important in times of upheaval. In the face of exile, slavery, or colonization, the act of singing or chanting together becomes an act of defiance, a way of asserting identity and hope. The psalmist cries out, "How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land?" The answer in both traditions is that we must, because song is what keeps us alive, what anchors us in the midst of chaos. In the end, the story of the Psalms and West African chants is a story of convergence, a testament to the ways in which sacred traditions can travel, adapt, and endure. It is the story of rhythm, yes, but also of resilience, creativity, and faith. In the echo of a drum, the repetition of a refrain, the rise and fall of communal voices, we hear the heartbeat of humanity, a pulse that transcends language, culture, and creed. As the sun sets once more over the plains of West Africa and the voices of worshippers rise in song, we are reminded that the sacred is never far from the everyday. The rhythms of the psalms and the chants of the ancestors mingle in the evening air, weaving together stories of exile and homecoming, loss and redemption, silence and song. In this convergence, there is hope, a hope that, no matter how far we may travel from the land of our birth, no matter how many times we are scattered or silenced, we will always find our way back to the source, to the rhythm that binds us, to the song that sets us free. As we reflect on the journey of these sacred rhythms, let us remember that every prayer, every chant, every psalm is an invitation to listen more deeply, to join our voices with those who have gone before, and to add our own verse to the eternal song. In doing so, we honor the legacy of both the Hebrew psalmists and the African griots, and we affirm the enduring power of rhythm to sustain, uplift, and unite us all. The journey of the Psalms into the heart of West Africa is not merely a story of cultural borrowing or adaptation. It is a living testament to the capacity of human beings to find common ground in the midst of diversity, to blend old and new, foreign and familiar into something wholly unique and life-giving. It is a reminder that, at our core, we are all rhythmic creatures, drawn to the beat of the drum, the rise of the voice, the resonance of the sacred. In the interplay between Hebrew prayer and tribal chant, we glimpse the possibility of a world where differences become sources of strength, where traditions are not barriers, but bridges, where every voice finds its place in the great chorus of creation. This is the gift of the Psalms and the chants of West Africa, a gift that endures generation after generation in every place where hearts yearn for meaning and hands reach out in hope. So let the drums sound, let the voices rise, let the rhythms of the ancients guide our steps. For in every chant, in every psalm, in every heartbeat, the sacred lives on, binding us together, carrying us forward, and leading us always to the threshold of the divine. And as the night deepens over the hills of Nigeria, as the fires burn low and the last notes of the chant linger on the air, we remember that this is not an ending, but a beginning. For tomorrow and tomorrow after, the song will rise again, new voices added to the old, new rhythms woven into the fabric of tradition. And in that endless, ever-renewing song, we find our purpose, our hope, and our home. If this story moved something in you, share it with someone else who's lost. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And if there's a legend, a memory, or a haunting you need to hear told, leave it in the comments. Perhaps your story will be the next to rise from the ashes.